Here are 10 Minecraft mods I would recommend to never PvP without. Now, just a forewarning before we get into these, I'm recording this as I'm very sick, so if I sound a little off, I do apologise. The first of these is called AppleSkin, and it's a mod most of you are probably familiar with, if not using right now. You can see in the following clips that whenever I eat a golden apple, or use my fish pet, my saturation bar will increase. This effectively shows me how much I'm going to heal up by when I take some damage. It's very useful as it allows you to budget how many gapples you can eat before each encounter. Another thing to note, especially for you 1.8 players, is that health pots don't actually increase saturation. They only have the healing value at face value. They don't have any after-lasting healing effects, so that is something to keep in mind. So if you're playing Nether Pot, AppleSkin shows you that you do need to gap after you pot up. It's not just the hunger bar that matters. One final thing to note about AppleSkin is that, by default, it shows you how much hearts you heal up when you're holding a specific food. Now this can be quite misleading, so in Nether Pot, quite often you offhand gapples, and this will permanently show like 4 or 5 hearts that are flashing red on your screen, which is how much you'll heal up by if you eat a gapple. And it can be quite distracting as you don't really know what your actual health is, and this can be turned off in the settings menu as I'm doing here. The next mod on our list is called Command Macros, and this effectively does what it says on the tin, which lets you run commands as macros. You can specify a certain command, be it server-side, client-side, or even a vanilla command like /message. You can bind it to a keybind, and then whenever you press that key, boop, it runs the command. And it's actually very useful in PvP because you can message your friends, call for backup, accept TPs, or if you're in a combat situation, you can spam it, and then the moment you get out of combat, the command will go through. It's quite useful for escaping or just general utility. You can see here I've got a command set so that I go to the outpost, so that whenever I see someone's claiming the outpost, boop, press the button and I'm immediately teleported there. I don't have to fiddle around, flying there or whatever. I've got it predetermined. It's very useful. The mod after command macros is one most of you are probably familiar with, but that's in a texture pack form. Now that is low fire, and this mod, called Fire Overlay Controller, basically does the same thing as low fire. However, the difference is it doesn't actually change the texture. So this will work with any texture pack. So if you've got some lovely 4K texture pack, you can still lower the fire, and you don't have to have the regular vanilla 16 by 16 texture of the fire with a low fire texture pack. So here it is in use. If I had lovely, animated fire texture pack, this would still work with it. And this also means if you have the need to, I suppose, you can make it the fire's completely gone. You would never see it. But it is quite useful to know when you're on fire, as you could probably imagine. Next up is in-game account switcher. And this does something that's actually completely impossible in vanilla, and that is changing the account you're playing on without leaving the game. So if you've got, a second premium account, or even cracked accounts for, God forbid it, a pirated server, you can easily change without having to log out, just close the game, open the launcher, change the account, and then rejoin. It's literally 3 clicks. Coming up to the halfway mark, we've got a very useful utility mod called Info Name Tags, and this lets you add extra data about players to their name tag, including their health, their armour, their ping. It's quite useful for PvP, especially the ping part. The health part is quite useful as well, but make sure it's allowed on the server you play on before you use it. I personally use it on the server, Jartex, because it is allowed, and it is a huge benefit. And I prefer it over the traditional health indicators because it's not as ugly and it takes up less space. And you can see their ping, which is quite useful. So if you're fighting somebody really laggy, you know not to accusate them. Over halfway now, we have Inventory HUD. It's very useful as it lets you manage your potions, your inventory, and your armor durability all in one mod. And it's got a super nice config where you can move the positions of everything. Now, I don't like the look of the Inventory HUD armor, so I actually use a different mod for that, UQ's Armour HUD, but either one of them works fine. It's just about the vibes and how they look, really. Now, with Inventory HUD, everything is fully toggleable. You can change almost every setting. You can change the size, you can change if it shows you the bar or not, you can change the position. It's a really well-written mod. The only sad thing about it, though, is it's not on Modrinth, or at least that I could find. And for that reason, I have to give you a CurseForge link. It makes me very sad, but I do. So, here you go. For mod number 7 on this list is Not Enough Animations. Now, it's not strictly a PvP mod, but it has one specific feature that is incredibly useful for PvP, and that is you can see when somebody is actually eating something. They aren't just holding it in their hand. And this lets you factor in when you should heal yourself, if they're bluffing or not, if they actually eat the gapple, and how much health they could be on if health indicators don't work on that server. But it also gives you more game sense, really. It's quite useful. I would definitely recommend this one. It also comes with a side effect. Very nice animations. Coming into position number 8, like the previous, it's not strictly meant for PvP, but it has applications, and that is Replay Mod. Now, I personally use it, not as like a cool video exporter to these beautiful animations, but as a way to kind of go back and watch what happened, and review, learn, and adapt. As you can see here in this clip, I'm watching 2 invisible people fighting. I want to know who they are. Boop. Takes me like 10 seconds to record them in Replay Mod, switch over, view the replay, and I can see who they are. It's also useful if you think there's a base beneath you. You can do the same. You can get out, you can exteriorize, and you can fly down, see, and perfectly legal. The second to last mod on this list is Xaero's Minimap Fairplay version. Now, specifically the Fairplay version because it's got all the entity radar features and cave radar disabled, which can be quite unfair on another server, if that makes sense. It's almost considered a borderline hack client, I would say, because you can see where entities are behind walls. It's quite unfair, but this version is just useful for spacing. If you want to fight around a specific location, you can set a waypoint there, and I can always see spawns that direction. I can always see outposts over there. So if I'm fighting, and I see, there's a message, outpost is being claimed. That is loud. I can just immediately fly over there and see where it is. It's just very useful for spacing, really, and also you can get cool little progress of where you're exploring if you use the world map. Now, the world map in the past, I've had some issues with it working with the Fairplay version, but it does seem to work, these 2 versions at least, with the Fairplay version. And finally, we have a mod which I'm sure is more than familiar to all you Crystal PvP mains. Again, not in the form of a mod, but as a texture pack, and that is Small Totem Pop. I prefer the mod version because also, like the Fire Overlay controller, it works with the texture pack. So you can have a custom totem texture, and the small totem will still work for it. Now, with this version, you can also change the speed, the size, almost everything. It's endlessly customizable. And here you can see it in action. Thank you for watching. I do hope you enjoyed the video, and please leave any feedback in the comments. If you've got any mods you recommend, I might make a second video. I don't know, we'll see how this one goes.